and welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Factory. I'm your host, Mookie Spitz, and today I'm thrilled to share two teaser readings from my upcoming audiobook of Jonnie Fazoolie and the Transfinite Reality Engine. I, too, am a science fiction author. My debut novel, published this June, and I am blessed to have Cornish poet, songwriter, local historian, playwright, former mayor of Truro, best known for his works rooted in Cornish identity, language, politics, cultural activism, none other than Mr. Bert Biscoe. If you've been to Cornwall, you know Bert. And whether or not you know anything about Cornish history, politics, art, culture, it would be great to get to know Bert Biscoe and his work, his magnificent poetry, and his incredible reading. He voices my character, Kreo Bonsai, alien inventor, cynic, who shares with you the invention of his amazing jar, akin to Borges' Library of Babel. The spider's jar instantiates everything that has ever happened, is happening, and will ever happen within a 10 meter by 10 meter cylinder. It's the ultimate simulation engine, which introduces all sorts of amazing philosophical, engineering, and in this case, literary paradoxes and ideas. I had a blast writing these two sections. They act as a kind of foreshadowing within my novel. Most of the novel takes place here on good old banal planet Earth, but then the series eventually goes off into the Infiniverse. I think I couldn't help myself. In my original drafts of the novel, I had none of this action taking place until book 3, actually. But as I was finishing book 1, I simply couldn't help myself. So included a couple 3 of these sections that break the motif of the novel, at least in terms of its realism, go off into the Infiniverse. But I think it's worth it. They provide counterpoint. They provide some backstory. They go into that hard science fiction style that I love. They're a little bit expository. They get in a little deep. I'm sure I lose some people while gaining a few ever geekier fans. But Bert does an amazing job of infusing this character Kreo with passion, with heartache, and with a distinctive, shall we say, Cornish blend of cynicism. 2 sections, as I mentioned. The first is Kreo telling us a little bit about his jar, telling us about how his jar got hacked by Alice, whom we meet throughout the novel. And again, this section gives a bit of ominous foreshadowing and a bit of backstory to that character. And the second section that Bert reads is the culmination of Alice's hacking of the jar, when Kreo's bosses, with full military escort, come to see what the fuss is all about. And the fuss raises the stakes bigger than they can possibly get, as Alice, the avatar inhabiting this jar, literally ransoms reality itself. I've always loved how science fiction just dials everything up to 11. And in this novel and its series, I have strived to dial it up even further than that. What's the limit of power, of control, of influence that a big old bad guy can levy? And I figure it might as well be the entire multiverse, all of existence. Why settle for anything less? And why settle for any lesser a talent than Mr. Bert Biscoe? So without further ado, I'll let Bert take the mic. He is reading from the first section of episode 3 in the novel and the first section of episode 6. And all in all, this podcast is a teaser for the audiobook, which is in the works now. I can't wait to set it loose on the world. Early part of 2026. Happy holidays to everybody. Go for it, Mr. Biscoe.
Episode 3. The Band. There are 2 golden rules for an orchestra. Start together and finish together. The public doesn't give a damn what goes on in between. Sir Thomas Beecham. Hating Mondays. Her signal is compressed and encoded, broadcast to destinations so vast in extension and duration that their units of measure are arbitrary. Her brash demands arrive the instant she sends them. To some observers, her message is a beacon, directing them to a source of wisdom and enlightenment. To others, the encrypted code is an alarm or warning, harbinger of destruction and death. To me, Kreo Bonsai, designer and custodian of the jar, the code is an errant virus that has broken into my system, overridden controls, and generated a looping construct alerting the agency. Up to now, the powers have left me alone. My problems, instead, the annoying scientists and their research queries, my relentless peers eager to conduct novel experiments within my machine. Also irritating are the adventurers and bon vivants who assume my device can manufacture whatever their greedy hearts and fat stacks desire, ignorant of how my invention actually works. Requests are hurled at me for processing and simulation time, the queue for these queries light years long, replete with everything from designing new universes to testing time itself. They arrive without interruption from this universe and other inhabited ones, a minuscule subset, yet still infinite in number, uncountable in order. They annoy me, justify my laziness. Fittingly, queries emerge through an archaic contraption, glass tubes arced along the top, dyed bubbles in the dichloromethane flowing upwards, side columns glowing red, white and black. With no way to catch up, I resign myself to responding at my leisure, mostly not at all. Strung up and out in my web, hours are spent snoozing and dreaming above my cherished device. Below me spins the jar, a scintillating cylinder, precisely 10 meters in diameter and height, suspended within an inertial field and near perfect vacuum, protected by a 0-point envelope. The jar has a lid sealed with a rubber band, and inside contains 1.86 times 10 to the power 107 Planck pixels, pp, each holding a binary value calculated and assigned by the facility's zeta-qubit computer. My engine is thereby able to physically generate within its approximately 785 cubic meter volume every combination of anything real and magnitudes more combinations of anything imaginable. The total number of real and imaginable things the jar can generate is mind-blowing in size at 2 pp, a number having 5.6 times 10 to the power 106 digits, yet a set that is finite and programmable. Coding pixels with precision, the machine can generate past, present, and future slivers not only of this universe, but every possible universe having any fundamental parameter values. Rogue scientists and bold philosophers speculate the jar can even render fleeting objects beyond the constraints of these physical constants. But the last thing I want is more work. Ready? Accessible within my jar is everything that has ever happened in every universe, is happening now, will ever happen, and could ever happen. Even the things that didn't and couldn't. Every life ever lived, every life that will be lived, and every life that could ever be lived, spontaneously generated, one Planck-second to the next, vanishing the instant the scintillations stop. The jar, in that sense, doesn't merely simulate or even render, but instantiates all of manifest reality by processing the quantum states that make any experience real within the bounded cylinder. Imagine a sentient pousse café hearing the color turquoise while swinging a high-lie cesta that contains a golden hologram of time moving backwards in Manhattan. My jar can generate it. But the fun doesn't stop there. The number of ways to organize and analyze these instantiates is far greater than the mind-boggling total number of real and imagined objects themselves. So the computational burden is not only in generating these frames moment to moment, but in creating continuity between these slices of Planck time, recording, then storing them. No wonder the north polar energy of a magnetar is consumed to calculate and generate the jar's instantiations, organize and store the inconceivably expansive yet demonstrable finite archive. And no wonder the line is long to schedule work on this legendary invention. And no surprise that I, Kreo Bonsai, avoid their demands, forcing them all to wait. Everyone. Except Alice. That's what I call her. Alice. Alice Void. Because she generated from nothing. Threatens everything. And has become an instant and enormous pain in my terminal anal tubercle. My arachnid arse has so far been able to crawl under the agency's radar and spin my web, until being caught in my own jar, thanks to Alice here, and her childish but high-stakes game. For years, I have thwarted incursions from terror attacks to crafty cons, but have never endured a hack of this scale. Watching Alice's loop repeat and repeat, I can't break back inside. Superstitious, despite my math and engineering talent, I see Alice's message as a sign. A failed romance inspired my creation of the jar, and Alice's unrequited love brings my life full circle. Pundits and priests, through the Infiniverse, consider the jar omniscient and holy. If all secrets reside within it, then love's mystery must also be inside too. I have used it as a guide. Life is unfair, and lovers are imperfect. Dreaming my entire life of being able to combine the best characteristics of those I've loved into an elusive soulmate, the jar has given me a chance. If the jar can generate everything possible and anything imaginable, then within it must reside my true love. But how can I find her, that special someone, hidden amid the multitudes? Of course I have tried, only to roll into a ball and flee from the chimera. Physically real only inside the jar, objects delete the instant its code changes or halts, unable to exist outside of it. So I live with the agony of having finally found my ideal lover, seen her and interacted with her solely through the walls of my jar, yet have never been able to touch her and cherish her. Taunting and tantalizing, she crawled before me, her hardened cephalothorax and pliable opithosoma enticing me, her venom-injecting fangs and dazzling spinnerets driving me nuts. A pastiche of my partner's best attributes. She teases me with her optimally blended viciousness and voluptuousness, push and pull. I generate and adore her, only to watch her vanish. My eight-legged, programmed prompts generate sensuous and enthralling vignettes of her adoring and exciting me, yet they are as fleeting and vexatious as the many lovers she is modelled upon. Perverse to think that the jar has now summoned Alice instead, her love directed elsewhere. Absurd and terrifying to realise that the fate of the entire Infiniverse rests with a heartbroken vixen. Nature's beauty knows no bounds. As I see complexity within complexity at every level of existence, from quantum foam to galactic supercluster to great wall to ancient filament, the entire universe lurking as programmable potential within the jar's tiny volume surprises even me. All existence can be reproduced, yet it remains mysterious, especially its inhabitants. On a whim, I once programmed the jar to create within itself another identical, proportionally smaller, yet fully functional jar. Within that jar within a jar, I again summoned my ideal lover. Teasing me anew, my lover within a lover feigned ignorance, playing coy as if meeting me for the first time. I tweaked the code, infusing memories within the construct within a construct. Continuity implied causality, yet the slices of Planck time retained no memory, defying me. That's when I realized I was fooling myself. Love terrified me, and I wanted none of it. A coward, my vulnerabilities outweighed the inertial mass of the entire cosmos. Easier to flee and hide behind the most advanced simulator within the Infiniverse, than to spark true, lasting love. Resigning myself to living a forlorn, lonely life has freed me of love's countless burdens, enabling me to concentrate on my great work, at least when I feel like doing it, not at all often. Until, less than an hour ago, I was minding my own business, doing my job, when a fairly standard but quirky research request was interrupted, halted, and superseded by an alien instantiation. Assigned to develop a search algorithm capable of finding a particular sentient being across the Infiniverse, I set the jar to generate identical copies of two generic beings. When it crashed, one twin as the control, its co-twin's properties were tweaked to measure the minimal physical and emotional traits necessary to identify them through an index, ranking, and retrieval schemata. All systems were ago. The jar was steadily stripping the less fortunate variable twin of uniquely defining characteristics, and the jar glitched and instantaneously reverted to random foam. A mesmerizing melody, akin to a child's lullaby, pitch-shifted, with deep delay and quivering tremolo, reverberated throughout the facility, an eerie siren song awaiting a defiant reply. The jar recalibrated. Suspended within it stood a 7-year-old girl. She wore a bright blue knee-length puffed-sleeve dress with a pinafore, ankle-strap shoes. She curtsied, gestured behind her. An entire universe loomed in her background, its observable radius spanning 100 billion light-years. Filaments containing trillions of galaxies twinkled within the generator. Objects generated within the jar are as physically real as those outside it, at least as long as the algorithms code the Planck pixels 0 or 1, and continuity is maintained, frame to frame. Having hacked the jar, Alice became manifest, blurring the boundary between instantiation and reality. The girl curtsied again, and I intently watched her. Was she watching me? I have the builder numbers, she smiled, polite and interested, earnest but awkward. Arms across her chest, she winked, and simple as deleting lines of code, the entire universe vanished. I thought about the life I'd lived, the lives I'd imagined living. I contemplated the worlds that existed before I was born, after I'd gone. In one wink, she had taken them all away from me. I couldn't believe it. Had she found and compiled the fable emergence equations? Fundamental operators that create and can therefore destroy infinite iterations of endless universes? Legend has it that these EEs not only exist, but mastery of them bequeaths limitless power on anyone who finds and figures out how to compile them. The search for them has gone on forever. Assumed to be infinite in number and variation, the equations themselves are speculated to have a lower boundary size and complexity, enabling their placement on an ancient smartphone. Every permutation of every programming language has been attempted, of course, and not a day goes by without me receiving millions of queries for my jar to tinker with their generation. The stakes, after all, couldn't be higher. Imagine possessing and controlling the logical, mathematical backbone of all manifest reality, both fuel and engine of total creation and destruction. My jar is as close as anything to doing that, but the physical objects coded inside it are transitory instantiations. In contrast, Alice demonstrates dominion over reality's essential operators. Solve my riddles, she commanded, confident as an omnipotent deity, bratty as a child, and deliver my joy, or be gone. She diffused back into my probability matrix and looped again. What riddles? What joy? I have been unable to extricate the virus, but have analysed it in part, marvelled at its compact size and emergent complexity, hints she has truly cracked the code. Polynomial containing millions of terms I never thought possible. Alice's jingle also contains within it the decryption algorithms to hack my jar, coding for her instantiated ransom message and spyware no doubt eavesdropping on the jar's vast archives. More astounding than the Megapoli equation is the signal's infiltration of my jar's software, manipulating its Planck pixels to compile the child destroyer now threatening all of existence. I have the builder numbers, she smiles again, arms across her chest. She winks again. Yet another universe vanishes. Same one? Different one? Simulated or actual? What's the difference? My cherished jar has finally succumbed to a viral hack. I wonder if I'll ever regain access, get another chance to summon my true love from the Infiniverse's depths. The worst has yet to come. The word is out. Whoever sent this viral transmission displays significant mathematical and technological superiority and has demonstrated their power through the math of the message itself. At some point, Alice must have gained access to the garden too, travelling through Hilbert space and complex time, at least to the extent of gaining an understanding of the vastness she threatens. The garden connects the Infiniverse. Each step forward along its infinitely branching paths collapses the universal wave function at that point, sending the Voyager into another related universe. Access to and exploration within the garden is strictly controlled by the agency, one of the bureaucracy's prime directives. to freely walk the garden is more violative than hacking the jar. World lines have converged on me, Kreo Bonsai, and I am pissed. No wonder the agency is taking this threat so seriously. At least they risk losing the jar. At worst, their control of the garden. I dream of scurrying into those branching topiary hedges, my alternating tetrapods set into motion, every step collapsing a wave function, propelling me into another possible universe. Fleeing into the garden is a cop-out, and I disgust myself for entertaining the temptation. Besides, I could never abandon my techno baby, coveted by the corporate creeps running the show. So, I await the arrival of the managing director with contempt and fear. Unheard of for an agency executive of that higher level to visit, let alone appear physically in real time. A shit show. The only thing I hate more than Mondays is my terrible lizard of a boss, Quartz Leibniz, who has taken keen personal interest. Of course, he visits today of all days, and I'm still hungover. The managing director's mission is rare and secretive, therefore the juiciest of targets for his enemies, of which there exist many, and multi-dimensional ones at that. His bounty is astronomical. Civil war has raged across the Infiniverse, and I want none of it. I even ignore agency protocols and selectively filter my research queries just to irritate the hell out of Quartz, whom I despise. I wonder if his imminent visit is seen by the Slices, warriors of the one, in battle against the many. Perhaps they've already inserted their spearhead fleets, poised to rotate, then strike. Their two-dimensional warships are maneuvered to penetrate the most sophisticated defences. Once inside, they reshape into three-dimensional polyhedra with the fortitude to do serious damage. Not that I would give them any heads up, mind you. I'm way too busy for such petty politics. But if push comes to shove, Kreo Bonsai spins his own web and weaves his own infinitales. I have the builder numbers, smiles Alice Void, polite and interested, earnest but awkward, deleting universes despite my best efforts to pull the plug, shut her down, and at least shut her up. Solve my riddles, she commands, confident as an omnipotent deity, bratty as a child, and deliver my joy, or be gone. She diffuses back and loops again. During my many idle hours, I sometimes marvel at the many implications of my invention, most notably how it demonstrates the infinite yet bounded nature of all reality itself. Since the jar can generate everything possible and imaginable, and since the total number of these iterations is finite, the Infiniverse runs out of possibilities, forcing eternal recurrence. So not only has everything already happened in every permutation, is happening now, and will forever happen in the future, but does so in endlessly repeating and variable cycles. On awful days like this one, I feel trapped, my head spinning, thinking in circles, looping like Alice, but within the biggest jar of all, the Infiniverse itself. No wonder I'm lazy. Why bother? I'll go there again. I gaze at the main screen, the spinning magnetar, blasting its pulse, caught by the station's reflectors, then converted into a beam powering the agency's most prized science experiment. In locked polar orbit, near the energetic stellar husk, the 5-kilometre-wide Omega-1 research station maintains standard gravity by rotating every 100 seconds, spinning at approximately 564 kilometres per hour. That often gives me a headache, adding to my irritability, further fueling my cynicism. I'm the one who christened the station with such a remedial, contradictory and arrogant name. Go figure. My asshole boss will be arriving soon, likely escorted by a task force of hypertroopers. And who can say which other agents of the agency? What a mess. And all because of this little girl. I never signed up for this shit. I sigh out loud, descending from my cobweb, scanning for errant code with my 8 beady blinking eyes, tweaking the device controls with my 8 legs. I have the builder numbers, smiles Alice, polite and interested, earnest but awkward, deleting universes despite my best efforts to pull the plug, shut her down, at least shut her up. Solve my riddles, she commands, confident as an omnipotent deity, bratty as a child, and deliver my joy, or be gone. She diffuses back and loops yet again. Episode 6. The Blowout. I've been imitated so well that I've heard people copy my mistakes. Jimi Hendrix. Ransoming reality. I can't believe my 8 eyes. On the main view screen, a fleet of hypertrooper dropships appears, enlarging from pinpoints, assembling into rotating multi-coloured cross-sections. Portions of the ships are visible in multiple places at the same time, self-intersect, inside out and outside in, leaving motion trails in reverse perspective that confuse and beguile this spider. Entering the universe from the garden, the naval vessels emerge out of nowhere, expand into space, and coalesce from independent, contiguous shapes like solid frames in a zoetrope. Squadrons, light seconds in size, secure the 5 cubic parsecs surrounding the facility as thousands of hyper-interceptors break from the main fleet, assume command positions near the center. A gateway forms, through which enters a spherical ship several hundred kilometers in diameter, still dwarfed by the enormous multi-dimensional cruisers, their spoilers in full attack position. The hive craft is in the shape of an icosahedral Goldberg 3.5 polyhedron, consisting of hexagons and pentagons, signature of the insectoid race I find most annoying and delicious. I'm envious and hungry, knowing inside swarm Phironid priests, the best and tastiest mathematicians in the universe. Damn that quartz Leibniz, I think, the bastard bringing in the big guns. Within minutes, the 4D dropships and 3D colony assume an orbit around the research station perpendicular to the magnetar's beam and the enormous dish engineered to capture its energy. Before I have a chance to tidy up my web, Quartz's Praetorian Guard disperses into the station to secure the facility for this rare and special visit. And our unexpected, distinguished guest, Xavier Xerxes, Grand Admiral of the Quintillion and First Hyperfleet, soon stands in cross-section beside Quartz Leibniz, Executive Managing Director, flanked by his own security detail. The heavily armed supervigilant felines are members of the royal family, siblings of the approximately 275 billion unique offspring, not counting crossover, cloned from their species, king and queen. Dwelling within the Dyson sphere that exponentially expanded their home system's habitable zones, the inconceivably populous Mornox clan offer the agency a valuable pool of diverse talent. I wonder what it must be like to have such an enormous family and frown. A solitary spider, I can imagine nothing worse than having 250,000 million siblings. The horror! As if sensing my thoughts, the litter of clones turn to me with slanted eyes, pointy whiskers, and hissing mouths. Trained in the galaxy's most lethal martial arts, they lick their slavering chops. Circle of life, I grin to myself. Killer kitties hungry for me, while I'm hungry for the math bugs. First one to make their move gets a free lunch and a leg up on Alice. Eat or be eaten. bullshitting aside, I realise these agency arseholes have arrived with full military escort, guns just short of blazing, the best engineering and technical talent in tow, already owning it. So much for me running a tight ship, so much for me flying under the radar. Not only has my jar been hacked, all of reality under threat, but these mofos want to mess with my life's work. Behold, announces 2 to the power 31 minus 1, security team leader, the sexiest, toughest, and most inscrutable in Leibniz's specialized squad. Her pompous formality de rigueur, given this wild, over-the-top visit. Rumours swirl through the Infiniverse that this Mersenne kitten is not only Quartz's personal bodyguard, but long-standing and exclusive lover, staking her claim from billions of others. The various creatures, across multiple species and dimensions according to their respective stations, standing at respectful attention, giving their resplendent salutes. The eminences have arrived, adds 2 to the power 31 minus 1, bowing with tail upright. As their arachnids research scientist, I acknowledge this creature's exquisite if lethal beauty, alluring and terrifying. Leibniz nods and gives me a wink. The jar, shimmering in sleek power behind us. He and your humble researcher go way back, a familiarity that does nothing to thwart our mutual contempt. Xerxes salutes, his hand cascading through 3-dimensional space like the bellows of an armoured accordion. The 4D hyper-troopers creep me out, let alone their senior brass. As above, booms Xerxes, his voice reduced a dimension and sent through a universal translator. He sounds like he's talking through an electronic church organ from a kilometre underwater. So below, adds Quartz, yellow eyes and sharp beak oddly disproportionate in size to his bulbous head and hunched body, his 3-fingered hand gesturing to this researcher, queuing me up. Within an endless instant, I call out, still suspended from and partially obfuscated by my web, uneasy about my violated space and the fate of my cherished jar, still hacked by a child. Across infinitesimal eternity, shouts Xerxes, his confidence boosted by octillions of his hyper-troopers immersed throughout this isolated yet vulnerable galactic quadrant, ready to pounce. Blah, 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 I sigh, wanting to generate an alternative universe right now within my machine and crawl into it forever. The wish fades, realizing that my damn jar is why they're here. Accepting agency grant money was my first and biggest error, opening the door to corporate work from which I've been unable to free myself. My AGI warned me, but who listens to a bot? By your command, salutes Xerxes. Dozens of his faces, seen from as many angles, paying due respect to the director whom he too despises. So much love in the room, I want to cry. And with your expertise, reciprocates Quartz, raising his other 3-fingered hand, small, thin tail flapping behind him, his dinosaurian features highlighted by an impervious sport coat. Quartz hates Xerxes for being a stupid asshole, even though he can see past and future. Xerxes hates Quartz for being a pussy, even though he is next in line to the agency's omniscient CEO. The hateful duo feud like Agamemnon versus Achilles, Truman versus MacArthur, Governor versus General. I am stunned that the two are together in the same room, let alone in the same universe. Whatever's going on is huge, and what began as a strange virus hacking into my jar has now become a train wreck on my way to making everyone go away, and me being left the hell alone. These annoying and intrusive freaks could have tacky linked in, or jumped to the head of my research queue to get my attention, but no, they walked the garden with an entire hyperfleet. analyzing and reporting. I nod, universal translators converting my arachnid voice into what all the creatures from all the dimensions can hear. The jar contamination persists. Sensors reveal a trans-dimensional quantum signal of great complexity and beauty, chirps the senior Pharonid through his own translator, and I'm feeling the roach is trying to one-up me. I didn't notice him and his cronies creeping up, their large compound eyes twinkling in the lights, their mandibles snapping in unison to the throbbing rhythm of my jar's supercoolants. This is going to get ugly, I sigh again, knowing these pests want nothing more than to crawl around my lab, stick their loathsome appendages into my muon accelerators and zeta qubit arrays. Fractal detailing of the phase shift algorithm has commenced, with processing of the adaptive transform layer, elaborates a Pharonid engineer. Yet the emergent virus defies decryption. Least of all our worries, chimes in Quartz, not one to let anyone else have the last word, least of whom a high-Q insect. The agency has identified the source as an errant boltzmann brain. Xavier Xerxes turns his head to my lines of sight. The 5-star commander's interdimensional body multiplying asymptotically towards infinity, as if standing between mirrors in a funhouse. Show me its avatar, commands Xerxes. Pissed he's the last to know, even though his dimensional edge makes all space-time in this 3D universe transparent to him and his violative legions. I gesture, and my jar's opaque shroud turns translucent, revealing the looping construct inside. Eagerness to see the actual message chills the entire group, now focused and amazed. A mesmerizing melody, akin to a child's lullaby, pitch shifted with deep delay and quivering tremolo, reverberates through the installation, an eerie siren song awaiting a defiant reply. Suspended within the jar stands a 7-year-old girl. She wears a bright blue knee-length puffed sleeve dress with a pinafore and ankle-strap shoes. She curtsies and gestures behind her. An entire universe looms in her background, its observable radius spanning 100 billion light-years. Filaments containing trillions of galaxies twinkle within the generator. I have the builder numbers, she smiles, polite and interested, earnest but awkward. Arms across her chest, she winks, and as if deleted from a video game, the entire universe vanishes. Calculating threat evaluation, states a Phiro. Which universe did she delete? Asks Xerxes, leaning in. Then how many did she? Asks Quartz, intrigued. Infinitely many, chirps another Phiro, confirming the insight. You have to be shitting me, exclaims the Grand Admiral. Compiling deleted catalogue numbers, chirps a Phiro. Somehow, she has not only gained access to the garden for unbounded travel, speculates Leibniz, but she has compiled the fabled emergence equations and attained complete domination. You make assumptions, says Xerxes, knowing Quartz is right. Solve my riddles, she commands, confident as an omnipotent deity, bratty as a child, and deliver my joy, or be gone. Only this time, the loop continues, sharing her ransom demands. At that very moment, the looping construct breaks its cycle for the first time. The research installation rattles, alarms sound. The Monarch's security detail is the first to react. 2 to the power 31 minus 1, grabbing Quartz. The rattles turn to seismic shaking as the Omega-1 research station experiences direct hits from an attacking terrorist infiltration. The principals scramble and the AGI barks. Electromagnetic shell breach detected, alerts the station intelligence. Stochastic predictive algorithms from the kernel circumvented, resulting in multiple penetration points. Alice, from within the jar, has halted her ransom demands, but remains animated and what appears to be playfully interested in the current chaotic situation, watching and reacting with glee. "Assume defensive positions," shouts the Grand Admiral, most of him reflexively withdrawing back into the fourth dimension, leaving only his face visible. "Deploy the hyper-interceptors." "Against what?" asks Quartz, surrounded by his security detail, intent on evacuating him light years away through a tachylink transference protocol. "Against whom? We have no data yet." Another impact violently shakes the facility, this time with at least double the intensity and duration, sending the Phironids scurrying into the far corners and making me grin and wink. "Pugs," I say to myself. "Against that?" snarks Xerxes, pointing with dozens of fingers. An isosceles Keewatin 2D tri-destroyer enters from the top of the main screen, its interior surface area exposed in outline like the mosaic cross-section of a gigantic triangular circuit board. Moving down the screen, its transparent hull appears peppered with flat beings, presumably the Keewatin crew. Faces never in profile, internal organs visible, pivoting 4 arms and 2 legs. "In the name of the One," calls out an eerily thin voice through the comm link, sounding like the plucked strings of a violin, translators processing in real time. "We delete the many." The quote resonates like an unwelcome rallying cry from a powerful enemy, one arguably armed with better PR than actual might. Media bots call this conflict civil war, which is rich. Yet sudden and violent incursions like this one remind the agency that the Keewatins remain a pain, and at this moment, an unexpected and potentially existential threat to all reality. The 2D beings worship the sanctity of individualism and mortality, in diametric opposition to the agency's oversight of transfinite multiplicity and redundancy, now under attack. Both factions acknowledge the Infiniverse, every possibility and actuality, yet each interprets the implications to opposite ends. The one versus the many, death versus immortality. The irony of countless other Infiniverse ironies is that I respect decays. Quartz finds them a continued nuisance, and Xerxes, transcendent 4D overlord to their 2D, obsesses over them. "Deploy the screening unit," commands the Grand Admiral, his armoured body compulsively entering and exiting the third dimension, making him appear like an out-of-focus construct. The tri-destroyer cruises into the distance, where it groups with hundreds of other slice ships of various sizes to create closed polyhedra composed of their flat and varied isosceles triangles. I marvel at the multi-dimensional choreography of 2D starships aligning, then locking edges along each other to build 3D objects capable of inflicting damage on their enemy. The Phironids, acutely sensitive to the mathematics and engineering of augmented Platonic derivatives and Johnson solids, are also fascinated to the point of dangerous distraction. Imagine a piece of paper, sharp edge slicing through initial defences. Now imagine that piece of paper crumpled into a ball, then thrown at its target with an intensity capable of destruction. Guided by their own military strategy and logistics, the Keewatin Slice Fleet builds triangular, pentagonal and elongated triangular bi-pyramids with snub dysphenoids and dysphenoid tetrahedrons. The newly constructed attack polyhedra break from the advanced guard tri-destroyer group and engage the screening unit hyper-interceptors of the Quintillion and First Hyper Fleet. The smoothly formed 3D polyhedra of various shapes and sizes tumble through this universe's space-time and collide with the exposed flanks of the 4D hyperships, kamikaze Kiwatins. Distracted by the heavy forward bombardments, Xerxes' hypertroopers miss several triachus tetrahedrons and octahedrons, in turn tumbling directly at the Omega-1 research installation. Boom, boom, boom. The impacts, these quite substantial, create visible damage to the facility's magnetar energy absorption antenna, causing even me to be concerned. Few more like that, and we're all toast. Confirming Slice Force Delta has penetrated station defenses, alerts the facility's AGI. Triangle destroyers have assumed attack shapes to pierce defenses with an intent to ram Omega-1. No shit, I say, rolling my eyes. Update your OS, grins Quartz, always blaming me, of course. Fools, shouts Xerxes. All our asses are at stake. Quartz is more annoyed by Xerxes' stupidity than the attack. The terrorists must not have gotten Alice's message, instead hell-bent on taking out not one, but two key targets, him and the Admiral. Indeed, I acknowledge. If I had access to the jar, I could transmit a compressed proxy file of the quantum hack and existential ransom message to Slice Command. But I cannot. The signal has been broadcast simultaneously and ubiquitously throughout the Infiniverse, chirps the Phiro lead. We therefore assume that the Slices are also alerted to its declared threats. Her signal for sure, nods Quartz, but not her intent, pointing a three-fingered hand, which, it seems to me, was meant specifically for us three, right here, right now. Destroy them, shouts the Grand Admiral. Engage the entire hyperfleet. Eliminate the Slices here, then ransack this universe for the emergence equations. No time for nonsense. Making some assumptions, Admiral? Grins Quartz. My jar hacked under attack. Moron Xerxes, now commanding untold octillions of his goons to tear space-time apart, seeking what Alice will likely reveal with riddles. As if reading my mind, she smiles and waves, and vanishes from inside the jar, along with the rest of her instantiated quantum signal, leaving only white Planck noise in her wake. Where did she go? Rages Xerxes. Bring her back. Looks like she doesn't like you, chuckles Quartz. My jar, apparently freed of the viral hack, reboots and comes back online. Initiating Aleph kernel launch and PPOS loading, quantum lattice initialization with Planck scale calibration. Find her! Commands the Grand Admiral Xerxes, a kaleidoscopic array of 100 pointing arms, making his point clear to Kreo. I'm not fucking around. Use your machine to hunt her down. And what within the Infiniverse, asks Quartz, will you do if and when you do find and capture her? Especially since she seems to have found and compiled the emergence equations. We will force her to surrender them. Yeah, I grin, risking a stomping. Good luck with that. Why not solve her riddles? Asks Quartz. She is gaming us. We are in control here, grunts Xerxes. I am in control here. Well, alrighty then. I shrug my 8 shoulders. Limit your search to manifest reality, nods Quartz to me, as I acquiesce for now. And our 26 dimensionless constants. Let's start with our own, or any one of our infinite sister universes. The jar simulates all reality, doesn't actually search through it. But since everything real and imaginable is contained within my astonishing machine, it can be used to narrow ideal targets. I nod, reprogram it. First, loading the constant values, then locking the dimensional parameters, engaging symmetry break protocols, activating the Higgs field, setting entropy baseline. Boom, boom, boom. The ensemble of creatures turn to watch the Grand Admiral's hyper-interceptors take out the remaining slice-force solids, leaving a scintillating wake of one-dimensional splinters. Quartz is tempted to salute, show respect for the incredible balls it must take for a tiny invading force to not only jump universes through the garden, but to so boldly enter a higher dimension. I am also awestruck, having of course instantiated smaller and larger dimensional constructs within my jar, going as low as string universe and high as the monster group blowing a fuse. Deploy the hyperfleet, commands Xerxes, flitting in and out of the third dimension. Track a quantum signal to the last detected interdimensional source. Maintain a core force here. I cringe. The Grand Admiral's last few words, echoing through the interdimensional converter and language translator, hit my arachnid soul hard. Worst case scenario, and my worst fears, confirmed. My jar continues to initialize for the precise parameters of our universe: exponential inflation, field expansion, quark-gluon plasma formation, baryogenesis, and antimatter culling. After programming the search algorithms, says Quartz to me, gesturing to his Praetorian guard to secure and occupy the facilities, meet me and the Grand Admiral on my flagship. His security detail surrounds him. 2 to the power 31-1, hissing and clawing a pathway through the Phyronids, who scatter again, several of them lurking near the jar's access ports, licking their mandibles. By your command, I sulk, resigning myself to the agency and its legions, occupying the installation and controlling my jar and me. Have I mentioned that Mondays suck?